Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is HD Starcraft and I'm going to be casting one more game I guess before I head off to Las Vegas, Nevada. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This is going to be a Protoss versus Protoss and I'm told this game is very good, so I'm excited to cast it for you guys. Down in the bottom left hand corner we have got a player from team MYi, same team as Shymoon was on for a little bit I think. His name is Fierytycoon. He is going to be the red Protoss player. He is in GM on Heart of the Swarm. His opponent is part of Complexity Academy, and he is Poo, the best name in esports apparently. He is going to be the blue Protoss player in the bottom right hand corner, and very much looking forward to this game. He is also a mid-tier GM, which means he's basically top like 0.02% in the entire world. Very excited to see how this is going to go down. Protoss versus Protoss yet again, and this is a matchup that has seen so many revisions and tweaks since Wings of Liberty. I mean, it's just a total joy to cast now. It's one of my favorite mirror matchups, in fact, because nowadays you have the Mothership Core Wars, you like that Mothership Core Wars, you have the early, you know, one gate attacks, one base attacks and whatnot, but the late game is so easy to transition into now because the Mothership Core and its Photon Overcharge and its inherent ability to defend a Nexus with, you know, you can recall an army back home and whatnot. It's very easy to expand, and I love watching late game sick PvP wars. I'm looking forward to watching one in this one. The last time I casted one was a pretty awesome game as well. I forgot who it was between, but I very do much enjoy Protoss versus Protoss here, so I'm looking forward to seeing what these two GMs have got to show us. Fierytycoon and Poo, best name in esports. Alright, so we've got, I wonder why this Terran theme is actually playing right now. I thought Blizzard made it so that you know, you have race-specific themes, but apparently now all types of music just play whenever you're playing Heart of the Storm. I don't mind, actually. Terran music is the best anyways. Pound Terran music. Here comes the probe, though. It did try to make a pylon. Now it's going to go down the ramp and do something else. Looks like he's going to be staying on one base for some time. You know, Protoss versus Protoss openings still aren't entirely fleshed out yet, even in Heart of the Swarm. Especially because of all the new units and abilities you have available. So I'm very much interested to see what tech paths these guys go with, how things diverge. For now, things look very identical. We have a 2-gas, 1 base opening for both players, and nothing too different as of yet, although it looks like we are going to have a Mothership Core coming out a little bit earlier for Mr. Fierytycoon. Poo deciding, instead of a Mothership Core, he's going to go for a Sentry instead. Remember, Poo is the blue Protoss player in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, this probe has made its way in, but because Fierytycoon is going for a core, that probe won't be able to survive for very long. Although the other enemy probe is going to die pretty soon as well, too, because the Sentry can zap the probe down. So the probe has to get out of there. It will make its way out of there, taking a little bit of cosmetic damage there on the shields, which will be regenerated. And here we go. Here's the first real divergence in the build. We have Fierytycoon going for a 1-base Stargate build. That's not very common, I don't think. Well, I mean, the thing is, in Protoss versus Protoss, back then, a 1-base Stargate build would be very uncommon, I feel like, in PvP. But in Heart of the Swarm, you've got a unit called the Oracle, and the Oracle is amazing. It does so much damage, and I mean, unless you're Noni or something and you like Phoenixes, I honestly think Fierytycoon is going to be going for an Oracle here. And he's even coming in with a Mothership Core to try to get a little bit of damage done before the Oracle comes, and he is going to zap that Stalker just a little bit, and it looks like he is going to go for Phoenix. Alright, well, I thought for sure he would try to go for an Oracle and zap down the probe line because they're just so good at killing off workers, especially probes. They're very flimsy. You know, only 40 HP instead of an SCV, which has like 45. But instead of an Oracle, he is going to be going for 1-base Phoenix here. And I guess he's going to go for the 3-gate, 1 Stargate build order, which isn't a bad one, obviously, but a little less common in PvP. But Poo has already taken the liberty to expand. He's playing a much more standardized, alright, I'm just going to go for a 1-gate, expand, add on a robo, add on a few more gateways, and now I'm going to have a well-rounded army which can deflect anything you send at me. I have something for air units, I've got something for heavy ground units, that's the Immortal, I can get an Observer as well, and I've got an expansion, so I really feel like Poo's opening is a little bit more solid. Fierytycoon is making an Oracle now, though, and I question question that decision. Why not make the Oracle first so it has more energy? Although, obviously, Phoenix have energy as well, I feel like the Pulsar Beam is much better than Graviton Beam in this early situation. But regardless, Fierytycoon going to pick off a couple of probes here. Photon Overcharge, though, is going to push the Oracle, or excuse me, the Phoenixes away. And that's one thing I should mention is going for early Stargate attacks can be shut down by the Mothership Core. And remember, Photon Overcharge lasts for a very long time. In fact, it lasts for 1 minute. And it does a ton of damage. Now, maybe Fierytycoon opened up with Phoenixes so that he could force the Photon Overcharge off the Mothership Core so that he could thereby clear a path so this Nexus would be exposed by these for these Phoenixes and this Oracle. If that was his play in mind, then that's pretty sick. But unfortunately for him, there are 3 Stalkers back there, and there's not much that Oracle can do. So now the Phoenix is going to try to take a couple more pot shots off, and now they're going to have to go home. Meanwhile, Fierytycoon is building up another Oracle, and these things don't come cheap, man. Look at that cost at the early game. It's very expensive. A 150 is not cheap at all, and you can see that it's really cut into his ability to get an early Nexus down. So Poo is going to have the early eco advantage, but at the same time, these Oracles, they could fly in and they can do a ton of damage, and they can even up the game very, very quickly for the red Protoss player. A second Oracle now is on the way to join the first one, and it looks like what Fierytycoon is going to try to do here is distract the Protoss on the north and then come in from the south with a double Oracle play. Although there are 3 Stalkers here, though, so it's unlikely these Oracles will be able to get much accomplished. I just like how Poo is intelligently leaving a couple Stalkers at home. He knows what the big threat here is, and he knows how quickly a couple Oracles can take out a probe line. So Fierytycoon sends in a few Phoenix in first, just checking the area and wisely realizing, hey, there's 3 Stalkers still there. In fact, the Protoss army is spread out. A couple at the natural, a couple in the main. So these Oracles, they are still going to fly in and do some damage, but it looks like, you know, just a little bit. 7 probes have gone down this game, but it's not enough really to entirely sway the momentum in favor of Fierytycoon. It's just been enough, though, to keep him in contention, for him to not fall behind, despite the fact that he went for a later Nexus. So I think he's done an okay job so far. I'd like to see him fly in and maybe take a couple more pot shots. Very risky, but it can be extremely rewarding as well. In fact, he has to, because the longer he waits with these air units, I feel like the less effective they become in the late game, especially since Poo, you know, he's going for more traditional ground-based army, Immortal, Sentry, Stalkers, and, you know, he's going to have a much better army as the game continues to progress, in my opinion. Although, then again, Sky Toss these days is nothing to shake your head at. It's very, very strong. We'll see if maybe Fierytycoon can make the transition into Ultra Sky Toss, you know, Carriers, Mothership, Void Rays, Tempest, and make it work in PvP. That would be pretty sick. I have yet to see, you know, that kind of playstyle in late game Protoss versus Protoss. But we'll see what happens. Back at home, what is he adding on? More Warp Gates. It looks like he is going to transition into a more standardized Gateway army, which, you know, like I said before, that's typically what you'd expect in PvP. These Phoenixes are still trying to find a way to get in there and get some type of damage done. Unfortunately, thus far, they haven't been able to. We can see that he's poking and prodding, trying to figure out if there is a chink in the armor, but there just isn't. Poo's defense is holding steadfast, and now he's got Archons out as well. Ooh, that's tough. The Phoenixes are just like, you know, they're nothing to Archons. Archons eat them up for breakfast. So, I mean, it's the same reason why Archons destroy Mutalisks. You know, it's not funny how effective they can be. Hallucinated Phoenix now flying about inside Fierytycoon's base, but Fierytycoon at the very least is doing a good job of keeping tabs on Poo's, you know, his composition, his position on the map, where he is at in the game, how many bases he's got. That's the one advantage you get by going Sky Protoss. Great map awareness, great you know, map control. And here we go. It looks like the Oracles. Oh, do we have an opening? No, there are photon cannons back here. Wisely, Poo throwing up a couple of photon cannons and now overcharging his Nexus as well. So 11 probes have gone down, but it's not you know, it's nothing too game-breaking thus far. I really feel like it is a super close game. I'm actually a little surprised. You know, Fierytycoon is holding the edge supply-wise, 127 to 100. Pretty incredible, I feel like, considering the fact that his army is mostly air units, and you know, Poo theoretically should be sucking up more supply with his more ground-based intensive units. I'm surprised Fierytycoon has a supply edge right now, so perhaps, you know, the constant poking and prodding is starting to do the damage it needs to do. Once again, just running in there, getting a couple of pot shots off. He wasn't able to kill a worker this time, but he's keeping Poo, he's keeping Complexity Poo on the back foot, man. I can't believe I've said Poo this many times already on the live cast. This is... Why would you do this to me, man? I remember that one time I casted a game with the guy's name was MYi.Panties. I think I said MYi.Panties like 20 times, you know, 50 times, whatever it is. Good stuff, guys, good stuff. Gotta think of the casters when you make your names, you know? Anyways, Fierytycoon here does have a couple Templars out. Both sides actually have High Templar on the field. High Templar is obviously pretty damn good, just due to the ability to storm down everything in their path. In Protoss versus Protoss, still very, very effective. Feedbacks can be used against enemy High Templar. You know, feedback wars are something you see a lot with Protoss in general, but in Protoss versus Protoss, it can be even that much more devastating. And, you know, one interesting thing you'll note here is in this game so far, nobody has made a Colossus. You know, in Protoss versus Protoss, Colossus are still good, but I feel, oh, those two Oracles, one of them getting zapped. But as I was saying before, you know, Colossus are good, but they have fallen out of favor a little bit in PvP. Reason being is Tempests are such a hard counter to Colossus. I mean, it is not really even funny to watch. A couple Tempests will zap down a Colossus like it wasn't even there. So that's for that reason. Now you don't see Colossus heavy strategy so much anymore, which I think is a good thing for the game. Heavy Colossus wars, I mean, while they were cool to watch, they could get a little stale. So I do appreciate the way PvP has evolved now, and you can see very diverse strategies from both sides. And it's time for the dirtiness. It's time for a Dark Shrine. It is coming up right now at the back of Poo's base, and you know, that's not a bad... You know, in the late game, DTs are just so good in every matchup. Why not create a Dark Shrine and start to rely on DTs? But I feel like, you know, Poo's supply is really falling behind now, 137 to 172. I'm not sure why his supply is so far behind Fierytycoon's. Could it be the amount of drones that have been taken out, or probes that have been taken out this game? 11. I don't know. Maybe his macro is just not as good as Fierytycoon's. Both these players obviously playing at a pretty damn high level of PvP. There is an enemy pylon here. Poo has an enemy pylon behind Fierytycoon's lines, but it is going to be taken out by that photon cannon and that, I want to call him a dark zealot just because he looks kind of dark and evil with that new color scheme. Pretty cool. But yeah, the zealot and the photon cannon able to take it down. Here we go. Poo is now bringing in the Dark Templars. He's also got a Warp Prism down here at the pocket expansion of Fierytycoon. These CTs, hopefully for Poo, will be able to get him back in this game. Honestly, he's not really even that far behind. With the warpage of the DTs, he's caught up in supply, in fact. Now let's see if these ETs can get some damage done. Finally going to be able to get a couple of probe kills of his own. Flying into the main base now as a Warp Prism of the enemies comes out of the robotics facility. There's something you don't see every day. Meanwhile, Zealots versus Zealots trying to clear a pathway here through the Photon Cannon, but the DTs have made their way over into the main base already due to the Warp Prism, and they're going to start to hack and slash this Nexus down. Look at that, +2 weapons, 55 damage a slice. And those are some pretty painful slices. That Nexus is down. Not a huge loss for Fierytycoon. The biggest loss of all of losing a Nexus at this stage in the main is the gas. You don't get the gas intake anymore from that base. But losing this Nexus is huge. If Fierytycoon loses this one, he is going to fall behind in this game. Unfortunately, it seems like there's nothing he can do. The DT's totally catching him by surprise. More DTs coming around the other side. And there's CTs in every single base right now. Not a good position at all for Fierytycoon, but at the very least, his army's still, I think, larger than Poo's is, and he's at least holding his line in the front lines against the big Protoss army. But what about these DTs? They've already done so much damage, and now Poo's warping in a bunch of charge lots to take out the Cybernetics core. No Cybernetics cores means no Stalkers. And look at all these gateways, man. I don't know why they're not warp gates yet. That is confusing to me, to say the least. Meanwhile, both armies still continuing to posture in the middle of the map. Fierytycoon struggling to get rid of the Dark Templars that have been threatening his base all game long. He does have a Warp Prism on the other side of the map. He could use that to warp out additional units, but he's so focused on dealing with these units back here. I'm not sure why he isn't sending some troops back home to deal with these Zealots and DTs. Perhaps he's concerned that if he sends his troops back home, then he leaves his front base open for an assault, and so he's just going to try to rely on a single Void Ray or two to take out the remaining Zealots. Very interesting thought process here. He's not sending home all that many reinforcements because he's worried about the army at the front door. So he's had to make a sacrifice here. Meanwhile, the Warp Prism that was on the other side of the map was taken out by Poo's Stalkers. But interesting game so far. I mean, Poo is still in the main base. No reinforcements have been warping out. Actually, I think reinforcements have been coming out one at a time or whatnot from Poo. But why hasn't Fierytycoon taken out the Warp Prism yet is beyond me. There we go. As I say it, he goes, oh yeah, let's take out that Warp Prism, and Poo tries to get it out of the way, but unfortunately no Warp Prism speed means you don't get out of there. Meanwhile, big attack possibly going to go down here. Psionic Storm coming through, and both armies taking a bit of damage. Big storm right there on the Zealots once again, but as Protoss go, you can just pull away and regenerate the shields. That's one of the great things about being Protoss. Feedbacks against Templars there. Who's the better Templar? Who's the Master Jedi? These aren't the droids you're looking for. But who can mind control who is really the biggest question here. Obviously, Templar don't have the ability to mind control. This isn't Brood War. But still, nevertheless, it's fun to watch these high psionic spellcasters work their magic against each other. Now, I really feel like in the last couple of minutes, Poo's been able to get momentum in this game. I think he's got the bigger army as well, although these storms from Fierytycoon are really, really good. And been able to do a ton of damage to the Protoss army. And now Poo, you know, I think he's been whittled down a lot. These Zealots just going to get absolutely owned by Archons. Archons do so much damage to Zealots. But it looks like Fierytycoon got to pull back a little bit and wait for his reinforcements to arrive. Meanwhile, Poo also reinforcing the middle line. I've got to say, during this entire extravaganza of the last 10 minutes, DTs included, both these players have done a phenomenal job to macro. I mean, look, they've all got bases. They're all on about 5 bases apiece right now. In fact, Fierytycoon is on 6 bases. He's simply not mining out of the top one out here. So an incredible macro job by both of these players. But it looks like we might be seeing the big battle unfold here. Fierytycoon needs to go in. Storm once again. Beautiful storms here. I mean, Psionic Storm is quite possibly the balancing factor of this matchup. As all the units clump up, a couple of storms are just absolutely critical. And you can see the Templar recharging into Archons as well, which allows them obviously to transform into another weapon of war, which is very effective against, well, it's effective against other Zealots, and that's pretty good because Zealots are the staple of the Protoss army. Meanwhile, this battle continues to rage on. Feedbacks left and right. There's even a DT in the mix right there, trying to get some justice in. And he's gonna, oh, if he can assassinate some of these Templar, that would be huge. But Fierytycoon wisely continuing to keep his army mobile, so it doesn't take damage. Meanwhile, it looks like we've got another Warp Prism attack. Seems like something was going on at this Nexus, but was taken care of by the Photon Cannon. This robotics facility is under attack, but meanwhile, major battle going on here. The Void Rays all use prismatic alignment to gain a little bit more damage, but only against the armored units, not the Archons. The Nexus did go down, which is unfortunate for Fierytycoon, but now that the Nexus has gone down, at least he can say to himself, well, forget trying to defend, now I can go on the offense, and it looks like that's exactly what he's gonna do. He's gonna try to go on an offensive strike here. He's going for a Dark Shrine of his own as well, but will it be protected? There's still an enemy Warp Prism inside of his base, and this game is just getting sick right now. Poo's even brought over a Mothership Core for I don't know what reason. It's just back here killing off probes. And meanwhile, where has the main Protoss army gone? It looks like it's recuperated itself or rendezvoused itself over here at the little narrow choke point between the pocket expansion and the 5th. Meanwhile, a couple of Zealots coming down over here, trying to take out a pylon or two or photon cannon or two and take on a few probes. But this game, I feel like Poo has taken under his control. I mean, he's done an incredible job to take out this Nexus. That was really a magnificent showing of delicate skill. I mean, just finessing his way towards that Nexus, using spells, feedback, storms, everything. Finally taking out the Nexus, and that was a glowing victory right there for the blue Protoss player. And all the while, he's been kind of hacking and slashing his way through numerous Protoss buildings and whatnot. You can see the constant cost of war and the struggles it's had on both players here, because right now both players are pretty low in supply for being a 27-minute game, and they're pretty low on minerals and gas as well. I mean, the cost of war is... I mean, just ask the United States of America. It's pretty damn expensive. So, Fierytycoon and Poo right now, not, they're trying to rebuild their army. They're trying to rebuild what they had. You can see Poo is actually focusing pretty heavily on Zealots right now, which isn't a bad idea. I mean, Zealots are just so cheap. They only cost 100 minerals, and they're just the backbone of your army. But we can see Fierytycoon trying to reestablish this nexus. Just getting a quick head count on the bases. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 bases for Poo if he can hold on to this one against a 6-base Protoss, a Fierytycoon. So it is even number of bases right now. And I mean, looking at the top right here, all the numbers look very close. It could be anybody's game, ladies and gentlemen. In terms of upgrades, though, I will say Poo has just slightly better upgrades, I think, than Fierytycoon. Fierytycoon is still on 223. Poo is on 303, so I think maybe he's just lacking in the shield department. So it's pretty close upgrade-wise, although I will say, if you're going to be making Archons, the shield upgrade is all important. It is critical. So maybe Fierytycoon has a slight edge there, because you know what? Now he's maxed out across the board. 3, 3, 3. That is going to help immensely. Meanwhile, some Zealots coming in from a Warp Prism attack, obviously looking to take out this Nexus. Will they be successful? Fierytycoon is maxed out, so he cannot warp in reinforcements on this pylon, and that means this Nexus, I think, is going to go down. Fierytycoon deciding, should I go back and save it? No, he's made up his mind. He's going to go on the attack. Big plays here. This could be it, although a couple of storms keeping both armies kind of back on the other side. Meanwhile, this Mothership Core finally being recalled home. It's been on an extended tour of enemy territory. It is the spy drone plane, and it has been recalled back home. Too funny. So I don't know where it went. It looks like it's over here now, and obviously it's out of energy, so it can't really do much, but still pretty hilarious that it's been out there for that long and finally was called back home. Meanwhile, Fierytycoon, he has lost the pocket expansion here, which is quite unfortunate that he wasn't able to save it. He did send 2 Void Rays back, but it was a little too late, and as a result, he did lose that base. Meanwhile, potentially big attack going down here. +1 shields is finally on the way from the Forge for Complexity Poo, which is obviously, he needs that upgrade. Shields are just so important, for Protoss. And now we have a couple of DTs coming out from Poo, gonna try to take out the enemy Dark Shrine. Wow, DTs killing Dark Shrines. Now I've seen it all. But yeah, they just killed out the Dark Shrine. Now they're gonna kill their light version, the Templar Archives. There you have it. And Poo now going to go potentially for the Fleet Beacon. It's interesting we even have a Fleet Beacon. We haven't really seen any carriers or Tempests being made yet. But there are a couple of more DTs going around the top side as well. And Fierytycoon, I mean, he just needs to drop some of his minerals into photon cannons right now. That's the way to deal with these hidden backside DT attacks. Get a few photon cannons, put them in defensive positions, and then just say, all right, just sit back and let those DTs do whatever they try to do, because they will not get through a tough grid of photon cannons. Unfortunately for Fierytycoon, he has not been able to hold the line, and he just lost a Nexus in the main base once again. So not good, not good, not good. But then again, you look at their bank, both players are now rebanking pretty significant amounts, so losing a Nexus here or there doesn't hurt too bad. I will say this game is probably one of the most evenly matched Protoss versus Protoss I've seen in a long time. What's interesting is we have a new Fleet Beacon coming from Fierytycoon, so that indicates to me that he wants to try to go for some type of sky toss here, which I think is a great idea. If he could convert into Tempests or even carriers right now, can you imagine the impact that would have on the battlefield? I mean, just that alone could sway the favor in your side, so I'd love to see that. Meanwhile, Fierytycoon is going for a little bit of a backside attack of his own. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a Dark Shrine, so he can't make DTs. He just realized that, so he's remaking the Dark Shrine right now. Unfortunately for him, had an opportunity, but it was missed because, of course, his Dark Shrine was sniped off. Big attack going on here in the middle of the map, and it looks like Fierytycoon has to come back to save this Nexus. Is he really going to lose another Nexus here? It looks like he will. Not sure how he will be able to keep it alive. Great storm right there from Poo. Oh, another huge storm, but enemy storms coming through. Fierytycoon drops the hammer, and both sides losing innumerable numbers of Zealots there. May a graveyard be erected for all to see. Many zealots gave their lives in this civil war between Protoss and Protoss, between friend and friend, family and family even, blood versus blood. Who is going to come through ahead? Which tribe? The Fiery Tycoon tribe or the tribe made of Poo? Finally, it looks like both sides declare a mutual truce just momentarily as they try to recuperate and get things back in order again. This game is just sick. 32,000 resources lost, 29,000 resources lost. Let's check a look at some of these other tabs spending. You can see Poo hasn't spent as much as on his economy, so he hasn't been making as many probes and whatnot, but he's been spending a little bit more on his army. Obviously, one reason for this gap is because Fiery Tycoon, I think he's been losing a lot of probes. Yeah, he's lost 67 probes already, so that makes sense that he's had to make more economy. Technology favoring the red Protoss just a little bit more as well. I mean, honestly, this game is so close right now. One interesting thing, though, I will say, is Fiery Tycoon right now has a lot of gas. 4,000 gas almost banked up right now. Could be because he hasn't been making DTs, whereas Poo has been spending a lot of his gas on Dark Templar. That might be a big X factor if he can start to dip into this gas surplus and start to make a bunch of Archons. I don't know, we'll see. And these zealots here are gonna eventually get cleaned up here. Meanwhile, man, both armies just so big in their Protoss-y ways. Obviously, this isn't big if you were looking at a Zerg army. Zerg armies are massive. But in terms of Protoss, these are big Protoss armies, man. These are like huge supply costing armies. And both sides still haven't figured out a way to punch through and get that victory. More DTs coming in here from Poo. I mean, DTs, obviously, the silent assassins, one of the keys to winning the game. Who can do more damage with the Dark Templar? And surprisingly, still Fiery Tycoon, as of yet, hasn't built a grid of photon cannons to protect his expansions, to protect his bases. I feel like it is so prudent to do so, and now he's making a couple of photon cannons. That cannon couldn't have come at a better time. That is going to save this Nexus and the Templar Archives